Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome to TaxLink's latest webinar. This time we're tackling residency by investment programs. You can consider this a follow-up to our Citizenship by Investment program webinar, which we had a couple months ago. And this time we'll be touching on residency by investment, but of course that's going to extend somewhat to citizenship programs because they're both attached or linked to each other. So with that said, let me get some admin issues out of the way. We are recording this webinar. We're going to have an audio recording available within a few weeks, and we'll also have a full transcript available for all of our listeners and our community members and our extended network. If you have any questions to those listeners out there, if you have any questions that come up during the transmission, make sure to use the GoToWebinar control panel. You can submit your questions. As a moderator, I'll be moderating this event as TaxLink's content manager. I will incorporate those questions into the discussion as I see fit. So with that said, we have 9 questions that have been submitted by our members, by many of our panelists, and I think we'll be able to cover all of these within the hour that we have allotted for this webinar. So I'm going to ask each one of the panelists to introduce themselves. I'll go from left to right in my screen here. So Janos, please let us know a little bit about yourself and your role and your interest in residency by investment programs.
Yeah, I'm working for Henley & Partners in Cyprus, and we're mostly focusing on residency by investment program, also the citizenship by investment program of Cyprus, which is very popular. The residency by investment in Cyprus became popular out of interest coming from China back in 2012. And nowadays, much more popular with the Middle East due to the instability. As professionals, we are trying to assist all those clients that show interest in the residency by investment program. Many of them having as a second home in Cyprus.
Thank you, Janos. Thank you, Janos, for the introduction. Laszlo, your third time doing this. An introduction, please.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Greetings. My company, Discuss Holdings, is providing access to all the citizenship programs by investment operating in the world now, and also 12 or 13 different residency by investment programs. We are not tied to any of the programs specifically, so definitely we are not part of any kind of beauty contest of which jurisdiction and which not. We are quite independent in a sense that we could give a fair opinion about the advantages and disadvantages of the different countries and the different solutions and different questions they can answer. And I think this is what we can do for the clients. And the last 3 or 4 years, especially with the international politics and economic situation not getting better, definitely created much more demand than previously. So I think this is an interesting business to be in.
Thank you, Laszlo. João?
So hello, everyone. My name is João Figueira. I'm the managing partner of Lugna, and our firm provides services in legal work, relations to tax, residency, corporate structuring, and now we are also providing in cryptocurrency. However, a strong department within the firm is related to global mobility, whether that is something attached to the normal immigration, work visa, etc., or also to the investment aspect or the investment alternative in residency. We have been handling the applications for the Golden Visa, the Portuguese Golden Visa, since the beginning, and we also provide some services in Brazil for the equivalent. But let's say that for the purposes of this webinar, I'll be restricting myself to the Portuguese regime, so that's what I'm here to talk about. Okay.
Thank you, João. And last but not least, Imad.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Imad El-Bitar, Regional Manager of NTL Trust in the Middle East. NTL Trust is one of the oldest companies in the Caribbean, starting 1994. And we start in Nevis, as the name of NTL Trust stayed for Nevis Trust Limited. NTL is a government licensed agent in the Caribbean for citizenship by investment, and we also cover some selected investment residency program in Europe. That is mainly what we are doing. And this will be my pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you very much, Ahmad. Thank you all of you for your introductions. So with that said, let's get started with the questions. The first question is actually a question that I posted on the forum. It's something that I guess I am personally interested in, and I think it provides a good entry point into our discussions today on residency by investment. So the question is, what leads an individual to pick a residency by investment program over a citizenship by investment one? Janos, do you want to get us started with us with that one?
Yeah, from our experience locally, what we see is that, of course, the financial aspect, it's a very important aspect in a decision. Take into consideration the Cypriot citizenship. It's the entry investment is at 2 million, where the residency is 300,000. So there is a big gap between the two. So first is that. Also, another reason could be that the country of origin of the specific client might not allow dual citizenship. And we have clients that are a bit sensitive in that, and they try to avoid to contradict with their own rules and regulations in their own country. Plus, if the potential client is seriously thinking to relocate in the country, he chooses to have a residency rather than a citizenship, because also he's going to be spending less money. And in combination, also, if his passport already allows him to travel visa-free to many countries, he doesn't really need the passport as a traveling document, then the residency could be of an option. And we should never exclude those clients that want to have a plan B in a specific country, having a home in a specific country and seeking for residency.
Thank you, Janos. Lastly, you have anything to add to Janos's comment?
I can totally confirm that the largest market by far for the residency business, according to my experience, is China. But on the other hand, for citizenship, because China, as Janos rightly said, it doesn't allow dual citizenship. And in fact, the consequence is that they can lose their Chinese citizenship. Then makes them very aware that, yes, applying for citizenship abroad might be a risky move. Residency is usually not a problem. They can go anywhere in the world. They can settle down anywhere in the world. But the citizenship is definitely something which they have to consider. Obviously, that the amounts required are much higher. The number of choices from the residency solutions, because many countries have residency solutions, 2025 who have residency by investment programs, but citizenship obviously is a much smaller market, and even though the amounts are much higher, but number-wise, the number of clients, the number of applications are obviously much lower than for the residency programs.
Jean, what's your experience with this question?
Well, my experience is very similar to Janos and Laszlo. So we're talking about two completely different, well, not two completely different goals, because I expect some applicants that apply for residency will eventually aim for citizenship through residency. That's very common in Portugal. In our experience, Portugal does not have investment programs for citizenship. We only have for residency. So that's not something that we have to discuss with the client. We cannot get direct access to the passport. Of course, we have other passport programs, but that's connected to Portuguese heritage or Sephardic Jewish ancestry from all over the world. That's and from former colonies. That's what we have. On the economic side, we have the golden visa, and of course, all the questions pointed out before. In Portugal, we don't have that obstacle with dual citizenship, etc., but the applicants might have it. So even though they apply for the golden visa, and they can, after the 6th year, apply for the passport, it hasn't happened yet, but some will not apply for citizenship. citizenship. They just get the permanent resident card, and it's there for life. So they will go with it and not apply for citizenship. But I subscribe entirely to what has been said now, whether it's applicable to Portuguese, because we don't have that citizenship programs.
Thank you, João. Imad, what has your experience been in the Caribbean, I guess?
Regarding to our experience in the Middle East, we have investors from some country where they have trouble in their country. And usually they earning their money in company established in GCC country like Gulf State country or in the Middle East. And they will lose a lot if they immigrate or try to get the residency, because the time is take too much time to get the passport, European passport. They cannot travel anywhere. And if they're moving, they will lose out their business too in this region. So usually for their freedom, I think the Caribbean for them is more suitable, and we have more increased demand in this region for citizenship by investment. And I agree with my colleague that some country restricted to have double citizenship, but in the Middle East, we don't have this problem. So we have more demand for citizenship than the residency program.
Okay. Thank you very much, Imad. Okay, let's go to question 2. Which solutions do clients prefer, property or government bond investments? Laszlo, since this is a question you submitted, how about getting us started?
I think it's the answer is simply based on human psychology. There are many people who love to hold their wealth in their hands, and they prefer property, and they want property, and they want only property. They are not interested in any kind of government promises like a government bond, investments, other investments. No, they want to use the money for something which is theirs under their own name, and it can be liquidated anytime. So this is the type of client who is interested in residency by investment programs which are based or partly based on property. I have many times I try to convince certain people that maybe compared to what they want to achieve, there is a more cost-effective solution by not using property, blah 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 blah. But I had to realize after a certain time that it's not really worthwhile to argue. If they believe in property, then I think we should offer them a property-based solution. If they are somehow flexible and they do not have those ties, then they are seriously can inquire about the government bond type of investments. And also properties are good, but on the other hand, they need either a proper management if the client doesn't live there, which means additional cost, additional tax burdens, and so on, which compared to the plain investment into government bonds is not there. So also that is also another consideration in how much additional effort a property would need from someone who wants to buy the property instead of the government bond solution.
Thank you, Laszlo. João, I know that Golden Visa also has several options. What are the preferences there in terms of, I guess, your investment?
Well, even my favorites are not what people go after usually. My personal favorite. Usually applicants go straight for the real estate options, whether it's the $500,000 option or the 350 option or even the 280 option, because there are several discounts you can apply if you refurbish the property, and if the property is located in what we call a low density area, low population density area, etc., etc., you can get lower thresholds when you apply for the Golden Visa. Of course, this is something that for some clients is good because they can park their cash into assets that is appreciating in value. And in Portugal, real estate is appreciating in value. So it is a safe bet. However, that money stays there, tied up. And there are other options, corporate options, let's say incorporation of a company that invests worldwide. We have one option if you do it with 1 million euros, but you can use the money elsewhere. So as long as the Portuguese company is in Portugal. And then you have a fairly recent one, which is for 350,000, providing that you employ 5 individuals in the Portuguese payroll for at least 3 years. So if you have an ongoing business, and that business can be, or some department of that business can be transplanted into Portugal, this is something that you can do to earn money instead of parking money or sometimes giving money away. Even considering that you get something in return, but you lose that cash. So Portugal has these options. Of course, we also have options, donation options, which are not investments, of course, but if you want to, you can give the money away for residency. But personally, I haven't ever seen anyone going for that. But you do have, so you have financial investments, you have the corporate investment option, or you can do the real estate. But most people will go for the real estate because it's a safe bet. They don't have to live in Portugal. That's something that's important to say. The regime is pretty flexible in terms of timing, the minimum stay requirements. They don't have to live here, so they can rent apartments. That's why they choose to go for real estate.
Thank you, Joel. What's the case in the Caribbean, Imad, in terms of preferences when it comes to the investment?
Usually in the Caribbean, we don't have this investment inbound. Although we have donation for the government or we have a real estate investment. Most of the people, usually they have the money, they will choose the real estate because they have lost, they don't lose much of the money and they have a return of investment of their property. And we face that in the Middle East, that people, if they want to go for Europe, they're looking for the bond to establish a residency. They're looking for a country who offer this kind of bond. But the real estate or experience, that's people going mostly for the real estate.
Okay, thanks, Imad. And Janos, what's the case in Cyprus in terms of preference?
We do not have in Cyprus the bond option in regards to residency. But okay, generally speaking, the experience we have with the clients is that yes, there are some clients that really understand and want a real estate option, but also there are the non-real estate profile clients where they prefer not to have any more or any other properties because they own another, because they already own 10, 20 properties all over the world. And it also is, I believe, is also connected to the country profile. If the country has offers real estate opportunities, yes, the people will see that and will be more keen to invest in real estate. Where if a country's real estate is not in good shape, of course, they will prefer to go, if there is an option, in government bonds. But it also it's also connected to the overall program itself. If, for example, they will allow the clients to rent the property out, or how to utilize this property in case they are not going to be using it as their permanent residence. So all these are a matter of consideration. As I said, in Cyprus, it's just property, and it's also just new property, which I believe it could be even better if it's resales will be included also, resale property. But nevertheless, that's what's available in Cyprus is new properties. So yeah, there are some clients that are real estate oriented, some are not. So both options could be available, and people could just decide what suits them.
Okay, thank you, Janos. Okay, moving on to question number 3. What are the guarantees for a successful residency by investment application? I guess these guarantees are going to differ based on the programs. But João, why don't you get us started with the Portuguese case? I can't hear you, João.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question, because I don't have them in written.
Okay. What are the guarantees for a successful residency by investment application? So what are the
Okay.
requirements that will guarantee success, I guess?
Okay, well, one thing that I've been seeing with other residency programs or worldwide, not necessarily the ones represented here, but worldwide, is that there is some degree of power of the authorities to decide against or for the applicant. So they have some degree, they can have a discretionary decision. In Portugal, this is not the case. In Portugal, so as long as you did comply with all the legal requirements of the so-called golden visa, because people, this is the marketing name, golden visa, but it's not called the golden visa technically. It's authorization, residency authorization for investors, so that's the proper name. But if you do comply with the requirements, it's yours. It is a legal provision, a clear legal provision that entitles someone to get the residency if, for instance, you have no criminal convictions. You fulfilled the investment required, so your investment is eligible. If you stay here for 7 days in the first year, if you did file all the paperwork and if you pay the government fees, you just have to wait and it's yours. So on the Portuguese program, let's say that most applicants will get it if proper due diligence is conducted before they apply, because we can tell you straight away if it's going to be approved or not based on the paperwork that they have and based on their profile and what they're about to do in Portugal in terms of investment. So if they do it correctly, there shouldn't be any problem.
Thank you, John. Imad, what's the case in the Caribbean with the programs you work with?
Usually there are no guarantee, as it is a government decision. But for example, with the Caribbean citizenship, we are doing our own due diligence about the applicant before taking up an application or engaging in contracts with the client.
Okay, thank you. Janos?
And yeah,
go ahead, Imad, sorry. I thought you had stopped.
Yeah, the citizenship as a citizenship by investment authority is eligible, has eligibility criterion, and in which they observe closely. And if the requirement met, there are usually no reason for failure. The successful rate is really very high. But the step what we have to do it before is important to cover all the point what the government looking for.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Imad. Janos, in Cyprus, what guarantees success?
Yeah, I will agree with my colleagues, and same applies for Cyprus. If the terms and conditions are met, and client will have a clean criminal record and proper due diligence is done, there is no reason for this application not to be approved. So if everything is done properly and their clients or their service providers are not trying to cut corners, as we say, it's a 100% success.
Excellent, thank you, Janos. And Laszlo, what's your experience been with success rates, I guess, applying for residency by investment programs?
I have a slightly different view from what was being said. I think, first of all, the rules must be very, very clear. And if there are so many subsidiary rules defined by the authorities themselves, which are not exactly laid in stone, put into stone, then that could make our lives much harder. Let me give you an example. There is one country which offers citizenship via investment, and I have heard cases which were refused because the applicant had a business partner 10 or 15 years ago, and even though they separated 10 or 15 years ago, that old partner has committed something, and by association, that person also was considered as a not clean enough or not really fit to get the citizenship. Although in normal sense of how the world should go, obviously this should have no reflection on somebody's integrity. So anywhere where the rules of what is accepted, what is not accepted, is not defined or cannot be defined, because in many cases it cannot be defined, that gives a power to the authorities to make a decision, which means that all in all, even though you would say that 10 years ago my partner stole money from me, is that the base for refusal of my application for citizenship? That is not really how it should be. So in this respect, there are certain cases which are, let's say, questionable, and there is no clear white side of it. And that is where, yes, the government, if they want really to be the program successful, have to be a little bit flexible, but not too much to invite and to get bad people into these programs. Having a no criminal record certificate is, for a big time criminal, quite often is not a problem, because they try to avoid the criminal record by employing someone else to do the dirty job. So all in all, the background investigations which are done in many parts of the world are also very, like in the Caribbean or in Malta, are very, very important to decide which client is acceptable and which one should be avoided at all costs, in addition to our own due diligence procedure, obviously.
Okay, thank you very much, Laszlo. Let's move on. Question number 4. This has more to do with tax planning opportunities. So the question is, which are the countries offering corporate tax planning opportunities in addition to residency? Imad, you want to get us started with that one?
Usually this question, I don't have any comment for that.
Okay, no worries whatsoever. Janos?
Because the people who go to the Caribbean, they don't go for the tax problem.
Okay. Janos, in terms of tax planning opportunities in Cyprus? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. Even though I'm not a tax expert and I cannot advise on tax planning, I can really say that, yes, Cyprus offers corporate tax planning opportunities in addition to residency. And it's very popular for this purpose. And the government itself is giving incentives in that direction, in order to attract more potential clients. And recently the government has came up with this good solution, a 60 days residency tax incentive. So yes, Cyprus is certainly one of them.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Janos. Hey, Laszlo, I know this question you submitted, so you must have something to say about it.
Maybe I was just simply over-enthusiastic. I think that the corporate tax advantages are just indirectly related to the residency by investment programs. And let me give you an example. For example, in Malta, people who get residency can use the non-dom system, which means that only the remitted or the money which is sent to that country is taxable on the personal income tax level. But if they form a company in Malta, then that would be a local income, which means that they would have full tax liability if they want to take out any kind of dividends. So what is usually being done, what we usually suggest people, is that they should have, if they want to think about corporate structures and residency at the same time or in one package kind of a solution, then we advise one country to be the resident part of it, and another country, not the same country, as the country where the corporate entities should be developed. Whether it's Portugal for residency, or Cyprus for residency, or Cyprus and Malta for corporate structuring, and so on, it really depends on what the actual business demands. But this is where there is there are quite a lot of possibilities, but you have to be very, very careful with the EU blacklist, with all the OECD, the common reporting standards, and so on, the rules are getting more and more complicated all the time. So you have to be really on the top to suggest something which is workable now and hopefully would work for the next 2 or 3 years. Because for corporate structuring, for corporate tax liabilities, obviously you cannot think only about half a year's time, but you have to be a little looking for a little longer period. And also, we have found that there is an interest for Caribbean jurisdictions to get citizenship, not residency, because the Caribbean, there are not that many residency possibilities, but for the citizenship, there is a demand from tax reasons. And this is just to try to somehow solve the common reporting standards, the information exchange question. I do not want to get into the specifics because probably that is not the aim of today's webinar, but it is coming up very, very often from the interested parties who are coming to us that, yes, which could be the better solution? Maybe it's a citizenship in the Caribbean, residency and corporate structure in Malta and in Cyprus, and so on and so on.
Laszlo, actually, it's good you mentioned it because we just received a question from one of the audience members, and actually 2 questions. And the question was exactly that. It's like, how is the EU blacklist and how is the CRS, the Common Reporting Standard, going to actually affect residency by investment programs? So do you wanna give us a quick take on that so we can answer our audience members' question?
The new EU blacklist, it actually covers all the non-EU countries, except the Caribbean, which suffered because of the hurricanes, the 2 or 3 hurricanes.
Right.
So all in all, it is a blacklist which left out the European tax possibilities, the countries which are offering European tax possibilities. So it is, in my opinion, it's very, very, very one-sided. But anyway, that's the European Union's decision. The second thing, the CRS and the OECD initiatives. It's quite interesting because I think 2 or 3 days ago, the OECD came out with a proposal of how to make public the name of users and name of service providers who are providing solutions for CRS avoidance. And one of the possible solutions is, by the way, offering residency solutions to change the tax domicile and tax residency of the clients. So that is just an idea from the OECD based on the CRS of how to make offering residency solutions which have a tax part of it as a kind of an advantage to be public and to shame all the people who are thinking about doing that and who are providing this as a service, not as a user, but as a service provider. That is just for consultative paper, but obviously we see how it is being channeled. And yes, we have to be also careful if that is enacted or what and how do we advertise our services, not to fall under this idea of CRS avoidance shaming initiative of the OECD. I don't know whether that was clear, by the way.
Yes, it was. Thanks, Laszlo. João, any comment on the question received by the audience member or about the tax planning opportunities alongside Portugal's golden visa?
Okay, I can combine them both. Let's start with the Portuguese side. What we can do in Portugal using the golden visa, and as I mentioned, we have some corporate type of investments. All of those inbound investments are put into share capital. There is no obstacle that this share capital is used elsewhere in the world. Of course, Portugal has a good double tax treaty network, and we do have a good participation exemption regime. So dividends and capital gains, inbound and outbound, are not taxable in Portugal. Some restrictions apply to blacklisted jurisdictions, of course, but that gives us some very good planning opportunities, because a company in Portugal can be a holding company, for instance, and you're already considering doing business elsewhere. You just set up the holding in Portugal and take advantage of the golden visa, of the double tax treaty network, and of the participation exemption regime. So that's a good planning opportunity. The Portuguese corporate tax rate is not that attractive. That's why I'm talking about the exemptions, because the Portuguese tax authority's rate is 21%. Still, that can be exempt on inbound dividends and outbound dividends if we have a double tax treaty and working together with the participation exemption regime. On the personal income tax side, we do have a regime called the non-habitual residency regime, which technically is different, but the goal is to create something similar to a resident non-dom type of system where foreign source income is not taxable by new inbounds into the country, new tax residents. Some provisions apply, some restrictions apply. Of course, this is very, very well known. People go after this regime, even if they don't have a golden visa. So they're not tied together. Someone that has a golden visa can apply for the non-habitual resident if they are indeed staying in the country, because the golden visa does not force you to stay in the country more than 7 days in the first year and 14 days during the second and third year, and again during the fourth and the fifth year. So you get residency and you don't have to stay here. But if you do, you can apply for the non-habitual residency tax residency in this question. let's make the connection to the EU list, like this. Portugal already have a very comprehensive blacklist. So in the sense that Portugal were always aimed at being a fully compliant country, and they're pretty nasty rules against nasty and good rules against complete tax evasion. They tend to sometimes discriminate unfairly against some countries just because they have low tax rates. But because they already have done this since many years ago, I don't see the new list being, even if it's implemented directly like it is, create so much difference in what's already in place in Portugal.
Okay. Thank you, João. Okay, moving on. I think we covered the question that our member submitted just now. Let's look now at a little bit about a question that was submitted by Janos in his interview. It's how has instability in the Middle East impacted residency by investment programs? And given its proximity, what's the role of Cyprus in all of this? Janos, you want to help us out with that one?
Yeah, Cyprus has always been a safety hub for the Middle East, and it's a fact that Cyprus now plays again an important role in providing a secure second home for the troubled Middle East. That's true, and history proves that. And nowadays that we see this turbulence, and we see that Cyprus really has the residency by investment program in place. We see that, and we witness that a lot of clients are using Cyprus as a safety hub, as a second home, for having an exit strategy if something goes wrong for them or their family. And what else we see that a lot of families are relocating the wives and kids for going to school in Cyprus while the husband is still in Middle East. And let us not forget that Lebanon from Cyprus, for example, is 20 minutes flight, 50 minutes to Jordan, 50 minutes to Israel, 50 minutes to Egypt, and so on and so forth. Everything is close by. So yes, Cyprus is once more the safety hub of the Middle East.
Thank you, Janos. Imad, as someone who's working out of the Middle East, what has been your experience with the instability, and how has that actually helped a residency by investment programs?
That's you talk about Cyprus or not?
No, you can talk about in general as someone who is in the Middle East.
Yeah, just I didn't really get the question. Sorry for that. If you repeat the question, please.
Sorry. Basic. Yes, I'll repeat the question. How has instability in the Middle East impacted residency by investment programs?
Yeah, we have increased demand for that. Especially we have turbulence in some of the country, like Iraq, Syria, and Yemen. All of those people, they cannot move anywhere else. They are, for example, they are staying in GCC country, living there, and they have their own business since 20, 30 years. And now they are stuck. They have to find a solution. And most of them, they cannot come back to their own home country. So they're looking for the solution. And I think the price what they can get it for citizenship by investment in the Caribbean is affordable for a lot of this investor. And as I said, that the demand is really now high because the people want to secure their family. They want their children to study abroad, and they cannot move. And some of them, they want to finalize their business or end their business in this region and start somewhere else. But when we look, for example, about Iraq usually, we consider Iraq one of the rich country. They have the 5th largest oil reserve in the world. But now Iraq have the level after the 3rd or the second bad passport in the world after Afghanistan and Pakistan. So you can imagine that people are really stuck somewhere where they are staying and they're looking for a solution. And I feel this, what I see it, the Caribbean is a solution for many of this problem.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Ahmad. In Portugal's case, João, have you seen an increase in applicants from the Middle East?
No, I think it's pretty stable. The Middle East is not the greatest market for the golden visa. I would say that the golden visa is pretty diverse after Chinese applicants. So you have the bulk, and then afterwards it's pretty diverse. However, there are some people that are interested. I talk with several every week.
Okay.
It's not I wouldn't say that it's the traditional option. I would say that Cyprus is the most traditional option for the Middle East. However, those who apply for the Portuguese golden visa are well served too, and they like also to live here because it's a very open society. It's a safe country, and it's not as close as Cyprus, of course, but it's in between.
Right.
So it's between the Middle East and the United States. So that's why a lot of people choose Portugal, in the sense that we're the last before the water.
Right.
So we have that Atlantic perspective. But I definitely wouldn't say that it's a traditional destination for investments for residency for the Middle East applicants. Definitely not. But it is an option, and I hope we see it increase in the future.
Excellent. Thank you, João. Laszlo, anything to add on the instability in the Middle East and RBI programs?
On one hand, as a, let's say, intelligent thinking person, I'm very, very sad of what is being heard and what is being done in certain parts of the world. But if those people would like to have safety, then obviously they would like to move. And this is where we would be able to provide a solution for their problems. For example, Malta had several hundred years of relationship with Libya and Northern African side. So all in all, we cannot compare Malta to Cyprus, obviously, which for understandable and historical reasons, but the ties between Libya and Malta are very strong. Also, there is also one advantage, if I may say, as this is not again a part of a beauty contest, but simply a fact, that if clients take up residency, at least for whatever reason, they are thinking of using it for additional advantages. And I would say that any country which could grab this market and is part of the Schengen area could offer a better solution or a more valuable proposition to the interested parties than a country, for example, like Cyprus, which unfortunately is still not a member of the Schengen area. So with the Cyprus residency, even though for the Middle Eastern part, it's really one of the best places to settle down, but because it's not part of the Schengen area, not the most optimal solution, or it might be not the most optimal solution for people who would like to get a safe place down and try to think about the future. But by the way, in Malta, we see a big increase in the inquiries from the Middle East, from the Emirates, from Iraq, from Iran, and so on, for the residency services, definitely because it is stable and it's part of the Schengen, so they get an additional advantage. Although the property sector is overheated, so there are always advantages and disadvantages of any system.
Excellent. Thank you, Laszlo. Okay, moving on. We have about 15 to 20 minutes left, and we have a few questions to cover. We'll try to cover as many as we can. So this question is for João. Considering that many property developers are promising guaranteed citizenship, how good are the chances of obtaining citizenship in Portugal after 6 years? What's the success rate in terms of those people that want to get the citizenship after the 6 years? After being in Portugal on a golden visa for 6 years, I guess.
Okay, well, one thing that I have to say is that realtors directly promoting a legal regime is not the best option for success. Okay, what we can say that, and this is the correct manner to put it, you are able to apply for citizenship after residency in Portugal. It's not guaranteed. Why it's not guaranteed? It's not guaranteed because you do have to prove some connection to the Portuguese society, the Portuguese economy. And you do need to speak a little Portuguese. It's very low in basic Portuguese, but you have to prove that you speak it. Sometimes, well, it's what I call restaurant Portuguese. You know, just have a small talk or order food. That type of level of Portuguese is what you need. Other than that, it's not required, but you do have to prove that, for instance, in the last year of the residency, or at least 2 years or 3 years, you stayed in Portugal longer and longer, because the Golden Visa is a residency program, and it's very, very, very popular because flexibility of not having to stay in Portugal most of the time. So that's good for the residency, but that's bad for the citizenship. You do need to stay longer and have a connection to the Portuguese culture and society to apply for citizenship. So making a promise on this is it's a no-no, because you do have to see what's the requirements. You do have to see the lifestyle of the family, and you need to see if the individuals are committed or not to learning a little bit of Portuguese. It's not very hard. You do have to make the effort, and you do have to have more connections to Portugal. So as long as you do have it, you can apply for citizenship and you'll get it. However, this is something that, to be honest, has to be put up front to the applicants. So I'm kind of against saying that you will get the citizenship and that's it. You can apply for the citizenship, and other requirements have to be complied with. So yeah, that's my take on the final step of citizenship. However, if you move to Portugal, you're already attached to the Portuguese society.
Right.
The problem is those who will not move to Portugal. Never, ever. It's still claim residency. So that's the difference. Those who will move will get it. Those who do not move at all and just come here for the renewals, they'll face a problem.
Okay, thanks. And Laszlo, anything to add to that? I know this was your question, so.
I think that but this is a question for Portugal, for Malta, for Greece, for that purpose, by the way, that yes, those programs are quite new in a sense that they started in 2012 or 2013, which means that the actual time limit has not been reached yet. So there are no cases whatsoever to make, because then there is no simply 6 years left after which you can apply for citizenship. So property salesmen, who by the way are one of the best salesmen in addition to insurance salesmen to sell anything whatsoever, they are simply very good, I have to admit that. Now they feel that basically they can say anything. Who would come to them, back to them, let's say in 3 years' time, in 2019, 2020, when the cases would come up, and probably if the client is not able to show attachment, real attachment to the country just by staying there a week every year, what is the advantage for a country to give citizenship, by the way? This I think wouldn't work at all. And if there would be, let's say in Portugal, 6,000 or 7,000 people applying from China for the citizenship, then the Portuguese authorities, like in Greece, I think they would simply wake up, let's be strict in the interpretation of the citizenship law. But up till that time, till 2019 and 2010, unfortunately, as property salesmen are promising, citizenship will be granted. Not maybe, not you can apply for, but it will be given. And this is a big problem in our industry, let's put it this way. Especially for the honest people who simply do not want to lie this to the parties. But then there is someone else offering this solution. Then how can you compete with that? It's very hard. Anyway.
Right. Thanks, Laszlo. What's the case in Cyprus, Janos? Do you have property developers who are actually guaranteeing a residency or citizenship? Citizenship in this case, I guess.
In Cyprus, things are a little bit more obvious because the legislation is clearly saying that you need to reside in Cyprus so many years, and then you will be eligible for a residency. It's not similar to Portuguese residency by investment program. So I wouldn't say that they can promise anything related to that.
Okay, excellent, thank you. Now, moving on, we have about 10 minutes. We'll try to cover 2 more questions, and we'll move on with concluding remarks. This question is for Imad, and this is talking about the German passport. The German passport is one of the strongest in the world. What options are available for investors to get a residence permit in Germany? Imad, I know you're in Turkey, and it's a big Turkish community in Germany, and so you could provide us some insight into this, please.
Germany have an excellent infrastructure and education and social benefit system. And usually by getting the permanent resident in Germany, the people will have the same right like German citizen. And they will have the access, and that was the important thing in this. They will have access to the public university, what is almost free of charge. To get the residency, people have to invest and significant or bring a significant benefit to the region. And the amount should be starting by around 200 to 250,000 in a new or existing company. And if this requirement met, they will get the residency in 4 to 6 months. And usually there are no physical residency required. The only condition, they have to visit the country every 6 months, one time every 6 months. After 6 years, if the applicant have a basic knowledge of German language, and he have a successfully running a company paying tax in Germany, he is eligible to apply for citizenship. Usually, the application for citizenship in Germany is 8 years normally. 7 years is the people have a little or a knowledge of the German language. And by 6 years, if they are active in the society and paying tax and having running a good business there. Definitely by acquiring the German passport, the people will receive the most powerful passport in the world, granting visa, I think now over 177 countries, including Europe, UK, Australia, Canada, and US.
Excellent, thank you. Does anyone else have anything to add on Germany, or do you have any insight into Germany? Okay, moving on. This one is about U.S. residency by investment programs. This was again submitted by Imad, so we'll have him take a first crack at this. What are the U.S. residency by investment programs available, and what exactly is the difference between the EB-5 and the E-2 visa? Imad, do you want to get us started with that?
Yes. EB-5 is one path to obtain a green card for foreigner in US. And the investment requirement is around 500,000, starting by 500,000 in high unemployed area. And the people have to, or the investor have to create 10 jobs. So EB-5 is very important for the economy in US. They brought around 1 billion each quarter. But the approval time take around 18 months. So as example, in 2014, the upper limit of 10,000 is reached. And we have 8,000 Chinese people apply for in 2014 to the EB-5 program. Mm-hmm. And on the other hand, people have the access to have a residency option in the United States by getting the E2 visa or applying for E2 visa. And E2 visa is the processing time for E2 visa is just 4 to 8 weeks in compared to EB-5. Now we have the option usually if the people getting the citizenship from Grenada, they are eligible to apply for E2 visa in US. That means in around 6 to 8 months, they get the passport, they can resign or they can have a residency in US for the same amount what they are giving to EB-5. And we're facing now a long waiting list, especially for Chinese people, after this huge number of applicants.
Excellent, thank you, Imad. We have time for one more question and then we'll do concluding remarks. I have a question here from one of the audience members. In terms of inquiries for residency by investment programs from the UAE, and I think he wants Laszlo to take a crack at this. So what sort of interest is there in residency by investment programs from UAE country, from the UAE applicants, Laszlo. Any insight into that?
I could give my opinion, but can we return for a second to the US programs? Because I had a conversation.
Go ahead, please.
During last conference I attended this year, and the professional, I trust his judgment, said that the waiting time for the EB5 program for Chinese citizens is 7 years, 6.5 and 7 years. Now, even if it's 3 or 4 years waiting time to get a residency, it cannot be compared to something which is granted, let's say, in 3 month time, because then the program is clearly defined. Non-Chinese applicants in the US usually have to wait 2.5, 3 years to get the green card. So that is one definitely disadvantage, big disadvantage. But how people are usually doing it is that the main applicant is not the father or household head, but it is rather the family members which are getting into the United States through this system. And that is a big difference compared to other programs. Also, if somebody would give me this green card free of charge, I would even say I'm not interested, because of the tax obligations, tax compliance, and all the other matters are so strict and so strictly enforced that I would say that thank you very much. I do not know about inheritance matters, for example, which many people simply forget in the United States when they get this green card and the residency, and they are not properly prepared for any eventuality. And that is my problem with the US programs, by the way, but that is just, let's say, a monologue. In the United Arab Emirates, I think that the Dubai became a hub, an economic hub of the region, let's say 20 years ago. And especially in our business, that is the place where you have to be, because then the countries which surround the Emirates obviously have quite a lot of problems, economic, political problems. Just think about what's happened in Saudi Arabia, that what's happened in the last 2 months. Then serious people would think, okay, maybe I have to consider a plan B if something goes wrong. That is valid nearly for all the countries, because those things could happen. And also, all the big players are present in the Emirates, mainly in Dubai. And all in all, yes, the market is very big. In fact, in addition to China, I think that the Middle East can be considered as the largest market for the residency by investment programs. So you have to be there, I think.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, I think that brings us to the end of the webinar. I'm going to ask each one of you to give us some concluding remarks, maybe talk a little bit more about the programs in your jurisdictions, etc. But just to give us a wrap up to what has been said today. So let's start with Janos. Some concluding remarks?
Yes, I would like to conclude by saying that Cyprus Residency by Investment Program, it is appealing for mainly candidates that would like to live in Cyprus, because as very well stated before, Cyprus is not part of the Schengen zone, so we cannot really tell the clients that you are, because it's not. So Cyprus would be for those that are looking to use Cyprus as a second home, and it's appealing mostly to the Middle East, but also for those that are looking for some tax planning solutions. And as I said, I'm not a tax advisor, but yes, Cyprus offers this opportunity to those people, and it's quite widely used. So Cyprus Residency by Investment is attracting those two types of candidates or potential clients. And we see the interest growing due to the instability in the region. But the good thing is that Cyprus is a welcoming country. It's been a welcoming country to all these nationalities, and it's going to be quite for the rest of the time also. And yes, we welcome those that will be interested to be part of Cyprus.
Thank you, Janos. Laszlo, any concluding remarks? Any additional thoughts?
All I can say, all I can suggest that if somebody is thinking about participating in any country's program, please ask the question, what are the advantages and what are the disadvantages? There is no 100% good solution. There are always small details which needs to be considered. And on a general level, that person is satisfied with the general picture, please go ahead. But otherwise, do not think that there are no disadvantages in any of the programs. Be careful, investigate, check what is the bad side of it and what is the good side of it, and then an educated, good decision can be made. This is what we suggest to everyone.
Thank you very much, Laszlo. João, any final comments on Portugal and our discussion today?
Yes, of course. As being pointed out, the lifestyle of the clients and what the client's goals are very important to decide where to go. For Portugal, I would point at the most the pros here, the best things about Portugal. We could point out the flexibility of the regime of the Residency by Investment program, where if you choose not to be in Portugal, you can still claim residency in Portugal. Then again, 7 days the first year, 14 the second and third, and again in the fourth and fifth. Permanent residency after. It's part of the Schengen area. You do have the tax breaks for the non-habitual residency program. Your companies will have good tax treaties. What can I say? Universities are free, free healthcare. It's a safe country. The lifestyle is good. So that these are the best things about the program. If you want to move into Portugal, of course, remember that you have to have some attachment to the country, some connections to the culture to apply for the passport. Other than that, I would point out that everyone needs to be very, very strict in analyzing the requirements of what they're doing and what their goals are, and always plan for the long term on these residency matters if they want to apply for something else after. But that's my final comments on this. Thank you.
Thank you, João. Imad, finally, some comments on the Caribbean and the Middle East and so forth.
I met for 1 week around, or for 4 or 5 days around, a Syrian guy who received the passport from Grenada, and he was 5 years stuck in the country. He cannot move. Now he was in UK. They came to Istanbul, and I saw the joy in his eye. And I will really say that is a touch moment when the people are free to move. He's an investor. He's traveling all the time, but now was stuck regarding or according to this problem. I can say people who are looking to invest in residency or second passport, they have different reasons, and we have to look closely what they are looking for, because their life is depending sometimes on this matter, and we have to give him really a special care to give him the right solution. And I am happy that we have really a variety of solutions in the world where we can make a choice for them, or at least to support him in the right direction.
Thank you very much, Imad. On behalf of TaxLinked, I want to thank each one of you for taking this hour to be with us. Janos, Laszlo, João, and Imad, thank you very much. I think it was a very instructional discussion and a good summary of residency by investment. Some admin issues to get out of the way before I say goodbye. This webinar has been recorded. We'll have an audio recording available within a few weeks. We also have a transcript, which should take a little longer, but we'll make sure to share that with everyone via email and in our community. So make sure to share that with your network. If you have any follow-up questions for our panelists, make sure to just post them on the relevant forum thread on TaxLinked, and I'm sure they'd be happy to answer those questions for you. So with that said, have a lovely weekend and a happy holiday season from all of us here at TaxLinked. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.